Hello, my name is Claire Arnold-Baker and I'm principal at NSPC, and I'm being joined today by Dr. Neil Gibson, who is our clinical coordinator and also the course leader for the EPT program. Hi Neil, nice to see
Hi, Claire.
you.
Thank you.
And I'm just doing a little series of videos with people who work at the NSPC around the existential approach and why we're all drawn to the approach and what makes it so special for us. So I'm asking Neil today, tell us about what it is about the existential approach that has drawn you to it.
Well, I was thinking about this, and the reason I first found out about it actually was I was doing a different training in the 90s in person-centered therapy. And I came across a book which was Everyday Mysteries by Emmy van Derzen Smith at the time she was then. And I read it, and I was so profoundly impacted by it that it seemed to bring about all the questions I had, all the ideas about people and living and the questions about meaning that we have. I was like, this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I felt, I was quite conflicted because obviously after that training, I then went on to apply for the existential psychotherapy training. But it was that bit that it seemed to just fit for me. All of the questions I'd been mulling over so much of my life, thinking, what is the point of this? What is the point of being alive? What's the point of relationships? How can I make sense of my life, the world, and how do I choose to live it? And it was just such I think this is really deep. Every stone gets, turned over to be looked at, not just taken for granted, but it's really inquisitive. And that's what I
Mm,
love about it, is that because it's philosophical, it takes itself to task as an approach. It doesn't let you off the hook with things. So you're really
mm,
forced to consider and reflect. And then as I think that one of the good things is that it's very broad in its scope too. So it doesn't say, well, this is the right way to do things or look at things, but its way of looking, the way that it wants to uh, see as profoundly and as broadly as possible, really is what appeals to me, rather than saying something like, uh, we're just a combination of drives that need to be understood or unconscious processes, or not being
mm,
reduced to a specific or
mm,
particular idea or theory and shoehorned into that. But it's a really open-minded
mm,
approach to being a human being, really.
mm, mm,
And I love the richness and the vibrancy of that. And I've always loved that. And it's really hard because sometimes I really want to be able to think, oh, well, this is this, and define it and put it into some kind of category. Haha, I've got it now. But you
mm.
can't really. You've got to be like, as soon as I think I've got it, it really slips through the fingers. And
Yeah.
that's because life is just not graspable. And yet it is at the same time. This is the whole
Mm,
paradoxical nature of
mm,
it. And all the while, you're in a relationship with someone that's sitting opposite you who has come.
mm,
And it's a real privilege because they're opening up their hearts and their minds and their worlds to you. And you can be really connected with them in a really full way with all of the empathy and all of the stuff that is crucial to having and developing and maintaining a relationship. But you've crucially, that's what I love about the existential bit, you've got a rigor, an intellectual rigor that's going on in the background, overseeing what's happening between you, how you might formulate that or consider it, or and not just from one perspective, from lots of perspectives. It's not, people say, well, oh, it's not like psychoanalytic, it's not as deep as that. Actually, we're very interested in psychoanalytic theory
mm,
and
mm,
approaches. We're very interested in Gestalt approaches and CBT approaches. It's not that we don't like that, it's that we love all things, everything is meaningful and powerful and has its place within an existential approach. It's just that we take parts of it that fit within uh, a philosophy that makes sense to us as a philosophy for living. And I think there's so many things I love about it, as you can probably tell.
That's great, Neil. And I think you really kind of put your finger on it, is about that kind of questioning, isn't it? It's that, and
Mhm.
that openness. of looking at life in its totality and our places within it, and just having that questioning, that curious, inquisitive attitude to ourselves and to life. It's,
Definitely.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and
Super.
sharing your views about that.
Yes, anytime.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire.